All right, so here is the lab. The first part that you're gonna fill out is your hypothesis. So the lab is based on our assignment, pure substances and mixtures. We're focusing on mixtures, and the first part is doing filtration. So trying to separate mixtures with filtration. So first of all, on your answer sheet, you're gonna fill out your hypothesis. What was your prediction before you got started here? For which mixture is filtration going to work, and explaining why you think that. Your materials, you're supposed to list your materials needed for the lab, and as you can see, I have a number of things set up just so to kind of speed the process up. So you could just list the materials that you would have needed if you were here and had your own station, with the picture that I put on the document. Your second part is to draw a sketch of the apparatus that we're going to be using. So here, over here is what the apparatus would be for our filtration. Take note that there is a filter paper in the funnel, so before each mixture you're going to want to replace that filter. So you just sketch that apparatus and label all of those parts. Right, the next part is your procedures, so actually carrying out the lab. So I added in there for a first part that you want to have a set up before you begin. So you always want to have that filter paper there, in there to start. And then I'll just go through it, and you can make sure that you list each of the steps that would be taken if you were doing the lab. So first of all, we're going to start out with sodium chloride. You're going to add a small scoop of sodium chloride to a test tube. So that is salt, right? So here's your salt, and I would use the scoopula here, right? Remember, like your little spoon, I used a different one for each substance. So you just want to pick up a small scoop, which is hard to do on my own without two hands. So I already did that, right? Over here, here's your sodium chloride or your salt in the test tube. Right, and part two, you're going to add 10 mils of water and insert a rubber stopper so that you could shake it vigorously from side to side and make sure it's mixed thoroughly. So I already measured that out. Here's our water, and I'll pour it in there, right, and put the stopper in. Shake it vigorously from side to side. I don't want to go like this and smash it on the table, so mixture side to side, and that should be good. I know the salt is dissolving in there, right? And then the next step is we want to pour it through the filter. So I take off the stopper and then go to my apparatus, and I'll use this one here. I'm gonna pour it in. I want to pour it in slowly so that it doesn't go over the side of the filter, because then you won't know if the mixture below with a filtrate is going to be actually filtrate if it doesn't go through the filter. So pour it in slowly. Right. Put my test tube in the rack. Be careful. And ready to have it set up so that it is slowly going to drip through. And I'll keep that going until all of the liquid has gone. And when that's done, it's gonna be faster for this one, so I could probably use this one, but the next step would be after it's done dripping through, I'm going to examine the paper. I could take it right out because it's salt and water, and I'll examine it to see if there's any residue on it. Right, so I'll take it out. Liquid's pretty much gone through, and I'll just unfold it on here. Right, and my next step is going to be to record on the observation table, or my observations about the residue, if there's any left on the filter paper. So in this case, there's nothing on the filter paper. So there's no residue. That's your something that's left behind in the filter. That's what you're taking out of the mixture. And then I'll describe my filtrate. So that's the liquid that has passed through a filter. right? So you can see there, and I've already done this so that you could look at the test tube for the filtrate afterwards if it's hard to tell in that beaker. So I did it once before, and right, this was the filtrate. So you could describe that. Right, and then for cleanup, it's salt and water, so we could just dump this filtrate right out in the sink. It's salt and water, and the filter can go in the garbage, right, because it's safe to be disposed of that way. All right, so now your number 8 is filled in for you. It says repeat the procedure with the calcium carbonate and water. So calcium carbonate, right, is in here. It's chalk, right? So it's a solid. I took a little bit out, right, with my scoopula. Maybe I could show that with this one. Used a different clean scoopula, right? I just want to get kind of the tip of it, and I put that in the test tube here, and we're gonna do the same thing, right? Add 10 mils of water, which I forgot to get ready. All right, so I got my 10 mils of water, right? Pour it in my test tube carefully. Insert my stopper and mix vigorously, side to side. Right, then I'm gonna pour it into my filter paper, making sure it doesn't go over the edge. And then let it start dripping. Now this one's gonna take longer, so we won't wait for the whole time for it to continue dripping. I did one earlier today, so you would let it drip until all the liquid had gone through the filter paper. And then, next step, take out your filter paper to see if there's any residue. So here's the one that I did before. And you can see, in this case, there is this residue. Right, so follow the instructions. Kind of scrape some of it off. Follow your instructions to describe. Your next step is describe those things. So you could describe your residue on the table and describe your filtrate. This is the liquid from that mixture that went through the filter paper. And this one's still dripping. So you can see that's how it's gonna end up. Right, so there's that cloudy mixture there, and that's what is coming out. Right, so for cleaning up this, same thing, right? This clear mixture, this water, you could dump that in the sink. Right, I'm not gonna dump that one because it's still dripping. Right, and this here is the chalk and the filter paper could go in the garbage. The only thing that you have to be careful about is if you did overflow it and you ended up with chalk and water in the beaker, you wouldn't want to dump that down the sink. You'd want to put it through your filter again, because chalk does not dissolve in water. So if you dumped too much of it down the sink, it could clog your sink. Right, so this table should be filled out, right? You could go back if you need to check any of it. Right, there's instructions up here for how you're going to describe each of those things. And then now that you're done, write up your conclusion, what you discovered about how filtration works. So what type of mixtures can be separated by filtration? And you're thinking about solutions versus suspensions. So you have to decide here, right, which one of these mixtures was a solution, which one was a suspension, right? So for which mixture did our filtration work, and for which did it not, and explain why in both cases. And the next lab that we'll do will be on using a process to separate salt from water. So I want you to fill out this part before the next lab. Consider, how might you separate salt and water, right? What could you do to recover the salt, separating it from the water? If you have any questions, just message me.